Hey, what's up guys? I know it's a bit unusual to see me sitting in front of the camera talking to you, but this video is going to be a bit different than what you normally see from me. As most of you probably know that are watching this, about, I guess almost 5 weeks ago now, I crashed my two-stroke that I call T2 into a deer on my way home from a car show about 2.5 miles from home after over 200 miles of riding that day. So I just thought I'd post a video, largely because I appreciate all the people that wish me well, just to give an update kind of on maybe a little more about what happened that day or night, my current health conditions, what's been going on, and the scooter itself. So, like I said, this is a bit new for me, just sitting here talking to you this way, but we'll see how it goes. So, I guess first I'll start off with just a quick or a little more in-depth story of what happened that night, because in the video I just typed some stuff in. Wasn't really up to talking at the time. So, coming home from the car show, like I said, hit a deer about 2:30, 2:45 in the morning. Didn't have a whole lot of time to react. I think basically I let off of the gas, maybe started to hit the brakes a little bit, and by then I was already slamming into the deer. It's going maybe 40 miles per hour. The scooter had actually happened to be heating up before that. Otherwise I probably would have been going 50 to 60, but because the coolant temperature was running a little high, I was going a bit slower right there. The video doesn't show a whole lot because it's dark, but from what I can tell based on my injuries and looking at my gear, it appears that the scooter hit the deer hard, and it looks like I probably was ejected from the scooter. Seems that I kind of went straight off of the thing and landed on my left side. I've seen my gloves. My gloves don't have a scratch on them. My helmet has damage on the left side. My riding jacket has damage on the left side. My pants were kind of ripped up on the left side. One of my shoes had holes worn through it on the left side. So it looks like I just slammed into the ground on the left side. I don't think I slid a whole lot because never had a lot of road rash. Just a lot of bruising and injuries on that side. So initially I thought that I just hit the ground, kind of shook it off, and got up. It wasn't until I actually watched the video that I realized that I was knocked out for roughly 2 minutes, just lying on the road, which I didn't post the full long version of the video of me just laying on the road the whole time or what happened after, because I didn't think anybody wanted to watch 20 minutes of basically dark. But if I had, you could see that there were actually cars that passed by me while I was just lying on the road and never even stopped. I woke up, immediately realized I was hurt. Couldn't move my left arm, so I assumed that my collarbone was broken, just because I've had friends that broke their collarbones in the past and have told me that as soon as they broke their collarbone, there was no movement of their left arm. They couldn't do anything with it, or their whatever arm the collarbone was broken on. So I figured that everything hurt. Had a guy stop, as you could see in the video that I posted. He asked me, I asked him if he could help me get the scooter off of me. Said he would, said he was going to pull up, and then, as you saw in the video, he drove away. So I realized he drove away. I got myself up. I managed to get the scooter up and onto the center stand. I turned the key on because I thought, I'm 2.5 miles from home, I'm hurting, but maybe I could limp the thing home. Just, even if it took me 15 minutes to get 2 miles, maybe I could make it. But when I turned the key on, there was nothing, no electrical response whatsoever. I didn't try kicking it over to see if it would kickstart, because my headlights had been converted to DC. So if I've got nothing when the key comes on, I would have no headlights, and I was already hurt. I figured the scooter was probably kind of messed up, thought there might be some steering problems or something. So I didn't want to add in trying to ride with no headlights on top of everything. And at that point I called home to get a truck to come get me. while I was sitting just standing on the road, wandering around, with still more cars passing and not stopping, state trooper pulled up, got out, asked me what happened. At that point I realized I wasn't real clear because I said, I think I got hit by a deer, I'm pretty sure, but I'm not 100% sure of anything right now. He looked at the front of the scooter, saw some deer fur on it, and said, yeah, you definitely hit a deer. He asked me if I was okay, if I needed medical attention. I told him, I'm pretty sure I broke my collarbone, but I don't want an ambulance. I'm just going to have family pick me and the scooter up, and then I'll get them to take me to the hospital. Took my information, wrote an accident report, and then another state trooper showed up while I was still waiting for the truck. So my father showed up with a truck. The two state troopers were kind enough to load the scooter into the truck, so we didn't have to do it because I couldn't do it. My father's 70 years old. He wasn't really up to trying to load the thing by himself. So they were nice enough to do that, and then we left, and I got family to take me to the hospital, the nearest hospital in Easton, Maryland. So I went to the hospital, got there probably 3:30 in the morning, and that time there was nobody in there. There was one person asleep on a couch in the ER waiting room, and that was it. So I pretty much gave them my insurance information and whatnot, and then within 1 or 2 minutes they took me in the back, asked me what was wrong. I told them what happened. The nurse said he broke his collarbone probably, I think he said 3 or 4 times from the time he was a kid till a young adult, from various sports and falls. And he said, so that's probably what's going on with you. Most likely they won't do anything to treat it but put it in a sling, give you some pain medicine, and you'll have some follow-ups. That'll be about it. Won't be a whole lot to it, as long as it's not coming through the skin or anything, which it doesn't appear to be. So, of course, they had to check up with x-rays. They took me, they did a couple of x-rays, then they seemed concerned, the x-ray techs. They ended up doing quite a few x-rays, getting me to move in different angles and whatnot. I guess the x-rays weren't enough, so they also got me to do a CT scan of the area all around the shoulder. So they came back, told me that I had broken the clavicle, which is a collarbone, the scapula, which is a shoulder blade in 2 places, and 2 ribs on my left side. Then the nurse said he had done this for 30 years, 35 years, something like that, and he had never seen anybody break the bones like I had, which is not a very reassuring thing to hear. Then the doctor came in later. He said that he didn't know what to do about it either. So he had consulted a local orthopedic specialist. Apparently the local orthopedic specialist also said he didn't know what to do. So they said the only choice that they had was to send me to shock trauma in Baltimore, Maryland, because they have a trauma unit there, obviously, and they would know what to do for sure. I had thought the family could just drive me to Baltimore to shock trauma, but I'm not sure if it's just their policy or what, but they said an ambulance had to take me. So I believe I ended up in Easton Memorial Hospital for about 4 hours, essentially just to get some x-rays and a CT scan, and they didn't know what to do with me. They did put me in a sling and swath, so just basically to immobilize my arm so I couldn't move around. They also put in an IV and gave me some kind of pain medication in the IV at that point. He just said, I'm pretty sure you want pain medication. And I said, okay, so he gave me an IV and put it in. Ambulance showed up. They pretty much just loaded me in there, checked my vitals, drove me up and checked my vitals along the way. I didn't really need any care. I will say my first experience on a long ride in an ambulance, I had one short one for about 5 minutes when I was maybe 16 years old, I think. But my first experience for a long ride in an ambulance, hopefully I don't have to do that anymore, because staring up at the ceiling or out through the back windows when you're moving that way, to me, makes me nauseous. And I'm not a person that gets car sick or anything like that, but yeah, my throat was in my stomach the whole ride, an hour and a half. Got me to shock trauma, took me in. That was a totally different experience than the walking into the ER here locally. As soon as they wheeled me in, basically a team of, I'm going to say, near 10 people came at me all at once. I had like 2 nurses pulling off my pants. I had somebody on this arm, somebody on this arm, like a head doctor. I'm not even sure exactly what everybody was doing at the time. They were asking me questions. I had them checking my pulse and different vitals on I believe, all of my extremities, like all my limbs. Checking if this hurts, if I can feel that, all that kind of stuff. And that went on for, I'll say, 5 to 10 minutes. And I guess they gathered all the information they needed pretty quickly, so they knew how to proceed from there. After that, there's a lot of waiting around. They decided to do a CT scan of my head because I wasn't totally certain of what had happened when as far as if I'd been knocked out or not. I said I didn't think I had, but I wasn't sure, so they just decided for safety to go ahead and do a CT scan. They found that I had a contusion. There's actually a bruise on the right side of my brain. And I said, well, my helmet, I believe, was all messed up on the left side, and everything seems to be hurt on the left side. And they said that was pretty normal because probably the brain, bounced around and it just hit the right side harder or whatever. And I got a bruise over there. So because I had a contusion on that side, I had a mandatory wait of 6 hours from the time of the scan to do another scan because they said they had to make sure that nothing gets any worse. Somewhere in there, I guess the orthopedic specialist from shock trauma came around, and eventually they decided they didn't need to do any kind of surgeries on any of the stuff in the shoulder. More or less, they told me that the collarbone and the shoulder blade are surrounded by so much muscle that if nothing is out of place, like sticking through the skin or in danger of puncturing anything, then it pretty much supports itself and they don't usually have to do any kind of surgeries. So that's the course of action they plan to take with me. Ribs don't generally get treated in any way, again, as long as they're not in danger of puncturing anything, which mine weren't. So more or less I just sat around the hospital from, I think I got there like 8 something in the morning, and I believe I was released maybe around 10 at night, if I'm not 100% sure. It was a really long day, but late at night anyway. While I was there, they asked me if I needed pain medication. I told them I didn't really want anything strong. It wasn't anything I couldn't deal with, so I just got them to give me Tylenol. The second brain scan, they said that everything looked about the same as it did before. The bruise hadn't got any larger, the contusion, so they cleared me to go home. By then, my left knee was really starting to hurt because they would wheel me in to get x-rays or scans or whatever, but I told them, like, there's no need to try to roll me over. I'll just get up and get on the tables for you to save you the trouble. And when I was doing that, I realized that I was getting really sharp pains in my left knee, and it was kind of trying to give out on me, so I had to hold on to something just to move, even from like wheelchair or stretcher, a couple feet onto another bed or whatever. So just before I was released, they wanted to check that out, and I told them I would rather just get that checked out at home, because at this point it's been a really long day. Didn't expect that they would do anything for it. I've had a stiff knee from previous crashes. Thought maybe it was just something similar to that, even though this hurt quite a bit more when I put weight on it. Really just wanted to get out of there, so basically refused treatment on the knee, and they released me to go home. So more or less I sat around in a sling for a while. They gave me an anti-seizure medication for 7 days because apparently you're at a high risk of seizure if you have a contusion. And they gave me some kind of oxy whatever strong painkiller that I, to this day, have never taken one of. I've just been using Aleve or Advil, Tylenol, whatever. Like I said, it hasn't been anything I felt like I couldn't deal with, and I'm not really a fan of strong medications, narcotics, and such. So yeah, just sitting around trying to stay off the knee as much as I could. My father actually had a knee replacement years ago, had a cane around, so I was using the cane, and I'm still using the cane to try and keep weight off of the knee as much as I can when I walk around. I've had family helping me with stuff, so I haven't had to get up constantly and move around at the beginning. Pretty boring, just, felt tired all the time. Developed bruising all up and down my left side in various areas, and even now, like I said, about 5 weeks in now, still tender areas in some spots up and down my left side. Had a follow-up appointment in shock trauma in Baltimore, I believe a week and a half after the crash. So at that point, I hadn't done anything with the knee. I thought I'd ask them about it up there. Turns out, I thought it was kind of a general follow-up. It was really only about the shoulder and the broken bones. So they didn't want to do anything with the knee. They said I'd have to make another appointment, and I wasn't going to make an appointment in Baltimore. That appointment, they didn't tell me much other than everything looked fine. It was still basically where it was after I crashed, and the doctor said he didn't want me in the sling and swath all the time. He wanted me to try and get the arm moving around a bit, because the longer it stays immobile, the harder it is to get function back in it. So he prescribed 4 weeks of physical therapy for 3 days a week. And that was about all that happened up there. So since then, I went to the first day of physical therapy. A few days after that, he moved my arm all around. The therapist moved my arm all around, checked the range of motion. The amount he moved my arm around, at that point, I realized there was no reason for me to wear the sling anymore, so I haven't really worn the sling since about 2 weeks in. And they got me started doing some real basic exercises, and yeah, everything hurt just trying to move the shoulder around at first. So I've been in there now for, I guess, roughly 2.5 weeks in physical therapy, and I actually have regained a lot more motion than I thought. At first, all I could pretty much do was move around elbow down, something like that. And now I can actually get my arm up. Really stiff, kind of hurts, but I can move it around now quite a bit. Kind of sucks because doing stuff like this, using a 2-pound weight, is way harder than it feels like it ever should be, but hey, at least the motion's coming back. I'm making steady progress. And actually just yesterday, the physical therapist told me I'm almost back to my normal range of motion. I don't have normal strength yet by a long shot, but the motion is about back to normal. So that's not too bad for 2.5 weeks of physical therapy, and now 5 weeks out from breaking all that stuff. Then with the knee, and also just getting this range of motion back, it probably sounds weird, but it's nice to be able to put on a shirt with less pain and to be able to bathe yourself and stuff by picking your arm up and moving your arm around easier than you could before. All that stuff is very welcome when it starts to come back. So anyway, onto the knee. 3 weeks in, I decided that it hadn't really gotten a whole lot better. I was getting a lot of sharp pains in the knee. I did something stupid. When I went to shock trauma, I decided I would walk out of the appointment to the parking garage instead of just waiting for my ride to come pick me up at the door. Just being stubborn, trying to be tough or whatever, basically just stupid. And then after that, I started getting even worse sharp pains. Right at the time, I was getting sharp pains right at the bottom of the knee in the center. Getting real sharp pains just walking down the street. So I knew I'd probably done something I shouldn't have. So decided I had to make an appointment with a local orthopedic specialist just to see what was going on. I didn't know if, for sure anything was really wrong, but I wanted to find out for my own peace of mind, because to me, like, knowing all these bones are broke, it's just kind of like, okay, whatever, I'll deal with it, it'll be fine. But then with the knee not knowing what was wrong, then I wonder what's wrong, if I'm doing the wrong thing by not going to a doctor and so on. So it's just easier for my peace of mind to go see a doctor. I went to see a doctor basically just shy of 4 weeks after the crash. They did some x-rays. The doctor came into the room. He's chuckling. He said, I had to laugh when I saw that a scooter hit a deer, which I didn't say anything about it, but I can promise you it's really not that fun or funny. And I don't really understand why along the way anything that happens on a scooter somehow is funny. It's still a vehicle moving at 40 miles per hour, still slam into the ground. It still sucks. But whatever. I get it. That's his sense of humor, I guess. Fine. As long as he's a good doctor, I don't really care. So he checks the x-rays and checks the range of motion in my knee, moves it around and stuff, sees if it's stable. Said it feels pretty stable, everything feels okay, but on the x-ray I had broken the tibial plateau. So the tibia is basically your shin bone, runs from the center of your knee down to your ankle, the big bone. And the tibial plateau is right at the top of that, which is essentially in the center of your knee. So I broke the very top of the tibia right in the center of the knee. Which again, I thought, oh crap. He said he gave me bonus points for doing that, because apparently that one's really hard to break. He said normally we only see that in children, occasionally somebody with osteoporosis. Otherwise it takes a hard impact to break that part of your tibia. So great. I've now impressed one nurse by doing something he hadn't seen in 30 years. Now the doctor gives me bonus points for breaking a bone that's hard to break. Perfect. Anyway, he said it's kind of a weird situation, because normally somebody would not wait 4 weeks to have that sort of thing diagnosed because of the pain that it puts you in. They would normally come in sooner, but not me. Sort of ended up to be a good thing for me, because he said if it had been diagnosed directly after the crash happened, they definitely would have taken some measure to make sure that fracture couldn't move. It was a non-displaced fracture or a closed fracture, so basically he said nothing moved around. It wasn't split open, nothing broke off. It was just a crack down the top of the knee, or the top of the tibia. So at least they would have stuck me in a cast with my legs straight out at full extension for, I believe it's a month. That would have been the least they would have done if they had seen that. So I would have been around in a wheelchair for at least the first month, because I couldn't use crutches to stay off of it. Obviously with broken shoulders, that would have been the only choice to be in a wheelchair. So kind of worked out for the best, I guess, that way for me. Not that I would ever suggest waiting to get something diagnosed, but I just got really lucky and I'd been able to move around on my own. He said since it was 4 weeks in already and I'd been putting some weight on it even though I was using the cane, he didn't really see a need to do much about it, because it has proven itself as a stable fracture since I've been doing all that and it still hasn't moved. So again, just got lucky on that one. More or less, he told me to keep doing whatever I'd been doing, which had just been, like I said, the cane, using a knee brace, trying to stay off of it, doing the rest ice compression and elevation to try and keep some of the swelling down. And yeah, then he prescribed me 4 weeks of physical therapy, 2 to 3 days a week for the knee. Now normally I obey doctor's orders. I go to them for a reason. I figure they know what's best. In this case, I've been walking on the thing for 4 weeks. A lot of it was about range of motion and strengthening. I know it's not full strength, but again, I've been walking on it even with a cane, and I sometimes walk around without the cane, just short distance, just like around the bathroom or something. So I know, it's nowhere near where I'd be if I was just coming out of a cast or something right now. And the range of motion, I'm in a brace right now, but I can pull it all the way up against me, and I can get it most of the way out. I looked that stuff up online. Again, I know that's no replacement for a doctor or a trained physical therapist, but for me, I decided that I could do what the physical therapists online and sports medicine places and such were saying to do for the full extension. So I just decided for now to not do the physical therapy there. Also, that would double my cost of physical therapy because it'd be a separate prescription. I'd be in there twice as long. Just really didn't want to do it. Hopefully I'm not making an unwise decision there, but I guess we'll find out. I still have the prescription, so if nothing gets any better, I could still go in and talk to my therapist and get him to evaluate me and see what he thinks I need. So, the knee is definitely feeling better than it was. I'm not getting the amount of sharp pains that I was. I can move it around better. Like at first, just to pick it up this much would hurt quite a bit. I get a lot of sharp pains all around it. I can pick it up and cross it and tie my shoes and put my shoes on, which I definitely couldn't do at first. So it's not great stiff, but it's certainly improving. The only other thing that the doctor told me about the knee was that I would have a follow-up appointment in 6 weeks. He said he could go deeper now and do some CT scans or MRI or something so he could look at all the ligaments, which that was actually my concern why I went there. I thought I'd probably tore a ligament or possibly tore a ligament, and just wanted to make sure I wasn't going on with that if I needed some sort of action. But he said with those kind of things, they normally give them time to see if they heal anyway, so he wasn't going to dive into a bunch more x-rays or scans and whatnot. He said just come back in 6 weeks. If it hasn't got better, we're going to have to look into why it hasn't got better. If it has got better, you're good to go basically. So that's where kind of everything is on the health. Everything's improving. It's a real slow process, but getting better. And as far as the head, the contusion stuff, the first week was really rough with that. I was just really tired, all that stuff, but that kind of went away. Now my biggest problem is I'm just having a lot of trouble sleeping at night, so I'm tired all the time. I feel like a zombie basically, but I'll get over that eventually. So yeah, I'm improving, and again, thanks a lot to everybody for all the well wishes that I've got. Really appreciate it. I feel like I'm just rambling on here, going on forever about stuff, probably giving you more detail than you ever care about. I know some people have been interested in the entire story, so I just kind of wanted to put it out there for anybody that was interested. If you're not interested in it, I think I might break this up into a few parts, at least 2 parts. So this one will be about me and my health kind of situation, what happened there, and then maybe another part about the scooter and some stuff like that. So thanks for watching this video, and I will put links in the description to any other video I do, which will at least be one more about the scooter. I'm not sure if I'll talk about anything else at this point. But thanks again for watching, and thanks again for all the concern that people have had.